Welcome to the hardest ranking on the channel. That's right, we're ranking the mighty Enslaved from my least favourite to my favourite. And Enslaved's one of those bands where every single album you could pick as number one. And they have about 16 albums, that's right, 16 albums, and any of them could be number one. You could throw them in a hat, mix them around, pick out a random one, and it could be someone's favourite because they're just that consistent and that good. But today we're talking about mine, and I did this 2 years ago, before the new album, before Heimdall. I think when Utgaard came out, I did the ranking for this one, and it's changed. You know, my favourite's not the same. My top couple are not the same. Even, you know, a couple, I mean, pretty much most of it's different. Aside from, there'll be a few in the same places, but it'll be interesting to see how my taste has changed with this one. So, again, let me know down below your favourites with Enslaved. What's your least favourite? What's your favourite? And what do you think of my list? I'm sure it's going to trigger some people. But, without further babbling, let's get in with my least favourite, which is Monumention. This one hasn't changed. This one was my least favourite last time, and it's still my favourite, but it's not as bad as I thought. Because I was always like, Enslaved's flawless discography, aside from Monumention. But on re-listening, you know, it has some catchy songs on. Some of the songs are actually pretty good. So I wouldn't say this one's bad. It's just not as good as some of the others, because it's a very kind of like when Heritage came out with Opeth. It was very different. More in the 70s prog rock stuff rather than the, you know, death metal stuff we come to love with like Deliverance and Ghost Reveries and stuff. Some of the singing on this album's a bit strange. I know they've done some fun singing in a lot of the other albums, which I love, but on this album, it's a bit weird, but they do have some intense moments, especially like the first couple of songs. There's a couple of intense moments throughout. But yeah, overall, like it more than last time, but still, it's coming in last place. Next to it is Vertebrae. That's right. Maradram isn't here. What's going on? Vertebrae is here. So from here on out, I really enjoy these albums, and it's stupidly hard to pick a favourite. Vertebrae is my next one because I feel like it is just going through the motions on this album. You have epic albums such as like Issa, Below the Lights, even Maradram and stuff like that, and then Vertebrae comes out and it just doesn't stand out as much as even Roon. Like, it doesn't stand out as much as any of those albums. It's just kind of buried beneath the greatness of other albums, and that's not saying this album is bad, because there's so many good songs on this album. The sound design is not as good as some of the others, but some of these songs are fantastic. Watcher, Clouds, New Dawn, just a few of the fantastic songs in this album. But yeah, I have nothing bad to say aside from it's kind of just Enslaved going through the motions, and they do this style better on albums like Roon, on albums like Ritir, on albums like Axioma, you know? They do this style better on other albums, so for me, because of that, it's coming second last. Next up, here we go. Ooh, Maradram. This is some people's absolute favourites, but again, some people could have Vertebrae as favourites. I know Trenches has this in S tier, and loads of people love it, and I understand. For me, it's higher than it was last time. I think it's a great, thrashy album, but when I'm listening to Enslaved most of the time, I'm kind of looking for that kind of proggy black, not really thrash. You know, this is the Abzu album. It sounds like an Abzu album, to be completely honest. Like, it doesn't even sound like Enslaved at all. And that's probably the reason why it's a lot lower, and it took a while to get into for me, and it's only taken like 2 years for me to fully appreciate the album, and I do appreciate this album a lot, but it's not my style, you know? I like it, but Enslaved is that kind of Below the Lights, Ritir, those kind of albums for me is Enslaved. Axioma, In Times, those are the albums, bit more melodic, bit more slower, methodical. This one's just intense pretty much the whole way through. The first song, though, quite long. That one's quite proggy. A lot of the other songs, though, just pummel you until you're into dust. And it's the heaviest album they've ever done. If you're in the mood for that, it's good. But most of the time, I like the other ones more. Next up, Utgaard. Utgaard is next. A bit lower on the list than last time. I think this one's pretty good. But I don't think it's even close to as good as Heimdall is. Like, the new album slaps the shit out of it. It really does. But the songs that hit on this album hit really hard, and I feel like it's very top-heavy. The first half of this album, fantastico. Second half, pretty good, but just nothing compared to the first half. Like, Fires in the Dark, yeah. And you got Jetagria, which is one of the singles, which was such a good contrast of the clean and the heavy. Homebound as well, another single which was fantastic. So yeah, that first half, chef's kiss. Second half loses me a little bit, but it's still Enslaved, so it's still gravy. Utgaard, ebbs and flows, peaks and troughs. It's coming here. Next up for me is E. E is grower of an album. It's a very slow album compared to a lot of the other albums though. But the first song on it, bloody fantastic. The River's Mouth is a masterpiece. Love the atmospheric build up to that, and it just blasts off, and it just opens the album in style. Amazing opener. Storm Sun, sorry. But yeah, River's Mouth, another fantastic song as well. But yeah, it's a lot slower album, methodical, and I love it. And I would rather play it than Maradram just because it's more pleasant to listen to. So yeah, E is coming here. E! In Times is next. In Times. This is an album which comes and goes for me. So when it hits just like E and Utgaard, it hits really hard. Like some of these songs, the first couple, but I feel like it's a bit too long and overstays its welcome, the album length, but the songs are still amazing. I can't remember, Furzizas Dreaming, how do you spell it? Furzaz Dreaming? You know the song I mean. That song is, oh my god, that song is bloody amazing. One of the best Enslaved songs of all time. Then you got Building with Fire, another powerhouse of a song. This album is great, and I always struggled differentiating between this one and Axioma. I always felt like they sound kind of similar, but on binging it, this one isn't as good. It doesn't have quite the oomph as Axioma does, but it's still a fantastic album from front to back, and even though it's a bit long, I still love it. So, putting it here, I wish it was higher, but other albums are better. Next up is Bloodhound. That's right, Bloodhound, which I think is the weakest of the early material, the weakest of the Viking kind of black metal stuff. But that doesn't mean anything because it's still here and it's still higher than the other amazing albums. Really good sound on this album. I just feel like they do it better on Frost, they do it better on Viking Lavalde, they do it better on all the other early albums. That's the only thing I'm saying. The other songs just speak to me more. This one's good as a whole. It's a great album. Enslaved can't do any wrong. But again, I prefer others. Like Viking Lavalde is next. What? This was my number one last time. 2 years ago. This was my number one. And now it's here. Kind of middle of the pack. Still love it. Still like a 9 out of 10 for me. Got the vinyl, love it. Got the shirt. That's how much I like this band, And this is the songs are long, like 10 minutes long. There's not a lot of them. There's a lot of repeating passages. It's kind of like Druk, where it has that kind of repeating stuff. But the progginess is still there in the early days. Like, you can listen to this album and still hear what they would become. So if you say, like, they were just black metal and then they became prog after Monumention, you're wrong, because there is prog still in Viking Lavalde. Love this album, always will, and it's a black metal staple, and it's here. Next to it is Frost, that's right, the classic Frost, one of the best black metal albums of all time, one of the best sophomore albums, and it's only here, because I like a specific Enslaved sound a little bit more nowadays. But yeah, Frost is amazing. Loke, Fenris, come on, Yggdrasil, all these songs are amazing, like, amazing. This album's flawless. You don't even need to tell you. It's a classic in the genre. It's got an icy cold atmosphere. And I love it, but Elders just surpassed it. Eld is next. This album's underrated. This album is underrated. I feel like it's the best of the early days. Starting off the Lindisfarne, 793. Oh my god, like a 15-minute epic. The greatest Enslaved song they've ever done? Pretty much. Any arguments here? Because you're wrong. One of the best Enslaved songs. And it's not just that. People always mention that. Every other song on this album is just as good as the first song. Really underrated cut, and it's this high on the list. Next up is one that's fallen down a little bit, but it's still fantastic, is Isa. Isa is next, which is You know, some of these... One day this is my number 1, the next day it's like mid. It depends. For me, it's still a 10 or whatever. I love all the songs in here. Lunar Force is amazing. The title track, Issa, is amazing. Not to be confused with the song Issa by Dark Fortress. Issa falling from the sky. Still good. Yeah, this album is just... It has that heaviness about it, coming off of Below the Lights, that kind of amazing sound I love. This is the Enslaved I love. This sound is the Enslaved I love. But I feel like the songs are better on some other albums, so let's move on. Next up is the latest album, Heimdall. Oh my god. One that came out like a month ago. And it's this high in the list. You're bonkers. Over Frost, you're bonkers. That's how good this album is. This album just... After listening to Utgaard and then listening to this, it's night and day. Like, this is just so much better. So much better. Forest Dwellers, like one of the best songs of the year. Holy moly. Holy moly. It just, I don't know, it just took everything from Utgaard and just made it all the better. The first song, I was kind of like, this is pretty good. But then every other song after that is a masterpiece. Caravan to the Outer Gods, you all heard that one. Came out ages ago, but it's on this album and it's fantastic as well. Yeah, Behind Mirrors now grown on me, so now I like every single song on the album. Like, I love every single song. So, yeah, easily put it high, and maybe later on in the year it'll go even higher on the ranking, but for now, it's coming here. 4 more to go. This one's a shocker. Roon in 4th place, that's right. This one's grown a lot. It's grown over in times, and these other albums like Viking Lavalde, what the hell? This is a very calm, and just, it's an album that will just drift you off. It's an album that's so relaxing and peaceful that I just love throwing it on. It's just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me. This is easily the most grower of the whole list, aside from my number 1. But, yeah, what could I say? It's just a relaxing album, and it's one I always love throwing on. It's the polar opposite to Maradram, which I don't like throwing on, unless I'm in like an intense mood. But generally I'm not. I like the Atmospheric Black and the Funeral Doom, stuff like that. So Roon just hits all the right boxes, and all the songs. Path to Veneer is one of the greatest songs by the band. The song Entroper as well, come on. This song has so many good hits. It's one of the best, and it's coming in at number 4. Number 3 is Axioma Effica Odini. This is the Opeth-like sounding album, that's right, because they toured with them around about when they were making this album, and the influences are there. This is got this kind of heaviness to the album, not quite as intense as, you know, Maradram, but it's got this heaviness to the album where the drums are just fantastic. The drumming on this album, beautiful. All the songs, magical. Got Roon and also the amazing Marching of the Giants, one of my favourite songs, probably the best chorus in Enslaved's history is on this album. Yeah, love it. Axioma is heavy, it's proggy, it's got great singing, it's got great screaming, it's got everything, and the production is perfect. So, number 3, Axioma. Number 2 was my number 1 for a long time. It was always between these two. Number 2 is Below the Lights, that's right. It can sort of change depending on the day, but Below the Lights is my number 2, and As Fire Swept Clean the Earth is a masterpiece with that soothing melody. Like, come on. And then you got the chantiness of, what's the song called? I wrote it down here. Haven, is it Havenless? Or The Crossing? I can't remember which one. I think it's Havenless. With a do-da-da-do, da-do-do-do-do-do, which Jamie loves to sing as well. Yeah, I love that song. I love every song on this album. It's a masterpiece. It's a 10. It was my favourite for a long time until my second favourite kicked it off its pedestal, and that is Retir. Retir is my favourite Opeth album of all... Oh, not Opeth. Enslaved album of all time. And ever since I got the physical copy, last year, 2 years ago, something like that, I've played it more than every other Enslaved album. The songs have just been stuck in my head. The songs are just the perfect blend of the heaviness and the beauty mixed together. Retir is the perfect culmination of all their work. It's a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a flawless album, and I love it. Thoughts Like Hammers is just the best. Veil Burner, Retire. It's the most sing-alongable. Every single song has like this chorus which is just anthemic and makes you want to scream to the outer gods. Every song is sing-alongable. Every song is heavy. Every song is calm. It's got the best of everything. It's got the best of everything, and I love it. Retire is the best Enslaved album for me. So, what did you think of this list? You're like, whoa, he's picking the more proggy stuff than the black stuff. But yeah, that's how my tastes have changed. Enslaved, the hardest ranking ever on the channel. To be fair, I like every single album here. Every single album, even Monumention, even Maradram, which I gave them some shit, and Vertebrae, they're still good. They're still good. I still enjoy them, and you throw them on any time, I'll have a smile on my face. But from Vertebrae onwards, like, 10s out of 10s. So, let me know your own list down below, and we'll see you again on another Quest for Metal.